conditions in prisons are Muslims. Now, they are being used by the intelligence services for foreign wars of aggression against Muslim countries. And the Muslim countries that the West is attacking are secular countries. They're modern countries, progressive countries like Syria and Libya. So the threat to Zionism is posed by Arab nationalism, represented by Syria and Libya, or, for example, revolutionary Shiism, represented by Iran. These two ideologies are anti-imperialist in their content, and that is the reason why Israel wants to destroy those countries.
Okay.
Israel is behind the war in Syria. We know that from the French government. The former French foreign minister admitted on French television that he had it from the former Prime Minister himself that Israel was going to attack Syria.
Let me get back to London and Mr. Millett. Mr. Millett, we looked at, you said that, for example, in the UK with the Multicultural Project, that they're continuing to try actually for all groups to be accepted. I want to look at, though, the reality of what is taking place as we're witnessing more and more attacks against Muslims and also against mosques and other religious places, Islamic places. So who benefits from this kind of schism that appears is happening in many of these countries right now? One, what's the source? And two, who benefits?
Well, I've never heard such rubbish from this other chap. He's absolutely delusional, and racist remark after racist remark is coming out of his mouth. He hasn't got a clue what he's talking about. I mean, you could look at the Holocaust cartoons in 2006. Iran held a Holocaust cartoon competition, and look at the anti-Jewish cartoons throughout the Arab countries. And remember, Charlie Hebdo also caricatured Jewish people. So, you know, he should go and read up his subject before coming on air. But in Britain, no one stands to benefit. As I said, this is a society which is trying to carry on with the concept of multiculturalism. And if there is any racism, then the full force of the law should come and be applied, and people should be sent to prison. So, you know, who benefits? Well, I mean, no one benefits. Society certainly doesn't benefit. But I guess if you want an answer, the people who benefit are the jihadists, the extremists who want to drive this multicultural society apart.
Okay, well, your take, Mr. Ó Colmáin, because what we're seeing also, there are critics that talk about the role of the media in general in actually exacerbating the schism between Muslims and non-Muslims. For example, right now in the United States, the top movie is American Sniper, that demonizes Muslims and Islam and is actually fomenting lots of anti-Islamic feelings. So why are we seeing movies like this, or articles, and also even point of view from news that seems to be anti-Islamic and causes this type of friction?
Look, the real contradiction here is the contradiction between capital and labor. We're in a deep global economic crisis. It's one of the great economic crises of history. The capitalist system needs submission, and it needs scapegoats. In the 1930s, it was the Jews. The Jews were the scapegoats then. Now it's the Muslims. This is the main problem. Really, if you look at it from a class perspective in France, the only way to make people globally accept this pathetic and this tyrannical capitalist system is to divide the working class. They did this in Ireland in the 19th century with Protestants and Catholics. Dividing the working class is a way of keeping them down, making them accept lower wages, retraite, no pensions, you know. So the basic philosophy behind this is divide and rule. So it's not really about Muslims, right? I mean, Muslims are trapped, if you like, in this scenario. But the basic strategy of the U.S. empire right now is divide and conquer. And in Western multicultural societies, Muslims constitute pretty much the majority are working class, while the Zionist Jews, and I make that distinction between Zionist Jews and ordinary Jews, Zionist Jews tend to be middle class, constitute the bourgeoisie. And so there is really a class war here, and the Islam is sort of caught up in that. And that's the reason why, you know, American snipers who are, you know, war criminals and have been involved in all sorts of disgusting operations around the world are being glorified by the U.S. media. U.S. media, of course, the U.S. film industry is basically a war propaganda industry. I should point out that in Syria, what caused the war in Syria at the very start were snipers. They had unknown snipers in Daraa, the 17th of March 2011, who fired on police and protesters, and that has been the NATO strategy and has been the Israeli strategy for many, many years.
All right, Mr. Millett, your take about the role in the media, if you see any, in actually being a divisive force?
Well, thank you. That's a very, very good question. I mean, this chap has just come out of, you know, he's got an obsession with Jews. Zionist Jews, non-Zionist Jews, Jews. All I've heard since he started is Jews. It's unbelievable. It's actually quite sickening. But yes, the media does have a bias. I mean, in my view, the media in this country is very biased against Israel. And this is, you know, a lot of what we have been witnessing around the world. These attacks in the Jewish shop in Paris could well have been incited, because you've got to remember what happens, for example, in between Israel and the Palestinians is filtered into people's newspapers, is filtered onto people's televisions, so they are only seeing what is being presented by people, and that isn't necessarily the truth. So when we hear the lies about Israel, we don't hear necessarily about the thousands of rockets that rained on Israeli civilians. We don't hear about the attack tunnels that come out inside Israel with Hamas aiming to slaughter Israelis.
Mr. Millett, when we look at back to the media question, sir, back to the media question, and I use the example, for example, of American Sniper, which is very popular right now in the West. Why are such films continually made? This is not the first one that has an overall anti-Islamic or Islamophobic theme. We have so many of those type of movies coming out of Hollywood as if there's some type of agenda to have a totally negative perspective existing in many of these Western societies.
Well, I haven't seen the American Sniper yet, so I can't really comment. But I mean, these films are made for consumption. They're made to make money. I'm not actually haven't heard about an anti-Islam side to American Sniper, and I have to say I'm not seeing this side of Hollywood, to give it the word that you might be you might be pursuing. I don't see this side to the film industry.
You do not see Muslims portrayed, sir. You do not see Muslims portrayed as terrorists continuously in films, in series that are shown weekly.
No, I mean, I don't. I mean, if it's reflecting a story that has happened where certain people have been Muslim, maybe, but I don't see it as that would be called, you know, a biopic or a documentary. But I don't see a film made to portray that at all.
All right. What about your Mr. Ó Colmáin? We are seeing, though, despite what Mr. Millett is saying, it is quite obvious on many of the weekly series, especially coming out of the United States. And lots of the top movies, Muslims are continually portrayed as negative characters, whether we're talking about terrorists or murderers or thieves or in general, just not people with scruples. How does this affect the overall whole as far as perspective in these Western societies when so much of it appears their perspectives are formed via the entertainment industry instead of by research?
Well, as I said already, the American entertainment industry is part of the military-industrial media intelligence complex, and it serves U.S. foreign policy. That's the whole point of the U.S. media and the film industry. I think we need to look at the origins of this. The demonization of Muslims basically serves the Israeli agenda in Gaza, the Israeli agenda in the Middle East in general, which is to establish suzerainty or hegemony over the Arabs. There's far too much talk about Islamophobia. I don't see this as Islamophobia. This is Arabophobia. They fear Arab unity in the Middle East. We must understand that the regimes that they fear and hate the most are very, very European-style countries, like Syria, for example, which is very liberal, progressive countries, forward-thinking countries, or, for example, revolutionary Iran, and I know that country very, very well, which has a very, very forward, a huge interest in technology and science and progress and so on, but with a religious ideology that is anti-imperialist. These are the kind of these self-conscious Muslims, Muslims that are proud and defend themselves and so on, and tolerant. This you never see. What you see instead is the Wahhabi fanatic. But of course, Wahhabism is really the other side of Zionism, and that's the point I made at the very start.
Okay.
The working class Muslims are being drawn into this trap. What they really need to understand is that,
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but we are out of time. I thank both of my guests for being with me. Political commentator Mr. Gearóid Ó Colmáin out of Paris, and journalist Mr. Richard Millet out of London. And as always, viewers, we appreciate you being with us right here on Another Debate. Make sure you join us right here, same time, same place tomorrow. I'm Marzia Hashemi signing out for all my crew right here in Tehran. Thank you so much, and goodbye.